empty garden. Anyway, it's been a pleasure the last, I think it would be 3 or 4, but I'm sure my...
4 or 5, I think.
4 or 5, well, there you go.
Yeah.
I've got Peter Hudson, who was the Liberal candidate for the seat of Rockingham. And as I mentioned, we can't be biased in our things, but I can only speak the truth in that Peter made himself more than available to us here at IPL Radio. I saw him out and about at the polling booths, and he told me he's at the Rockingham station at 6 o'clock or 6:30 in the morning. So my point being, he did the hard yards, which, you know, is great. And not only that, as we know, the Labor candidate got in, but Peter was kind enough to go in front up, and thanks for that, Peter.
No, of course, Nick. Look, it's so important to keep that constant connection with the community, and I think that's something that was a recurring theme of our chats over the last 4 odd weeks. Is that we need to be someone who's real, genuine with the public, and it goes back to my point that I mentioned last week. If you're not willing to speak to the people, how can you expect to speak for them? So that's the key. Is like we're always looking for that full feedback loop, and obviously the result on Saturday night was what the result was. And look, it's something that I'm not too displeased about. In fact, I think everyone that worked on my campaign, they should be incredibly proud, because we executed a flawless campaign over a very short, admittedly 6-week time frame. We executed a campaign with such professionalism, and something that I think everyone that works out of headquarters, all of my volunteers at the train station or waving signs for me every morning, like these people should all be incredibly proud, because the result that I think we pulled on Saturday night, it is very reflective of a big shift in sentiment by both the electorate here in Rockingham, but also broadly in Western Australian politics. It definitely looks to me like the landscape is shifting.
You've obviously got all the facts and figures. I only know what I read on Facebook or the paper or something like that. Is there any nuts and bolts that you can tell us about the result on Saturday?
Yeah, look, absolutely. And look, any party, especially the government, is going to spin these numbers whichever way they like for their own gain. But I'll always be someone who's very truthful in the representation of these numbers. But it is a fact to say that the result that we had on Saturday night is the best result for the Liberal Party in Rockingham in more than a decade. So since Mark McGowan was elected and since he became Premier, this is the best election result that we've had. What that looks like in the nuts and bolts of it is a 30% drop in the Labor primary. So here's another fact for you. The last time that the Labor Party needed preferences, so the Greens Party, the Cannabis Party, all the rest of them, in order to get in, was at Mark McGowan's very first election in 1996. Ever since then, they've had more than 50% of people put Labor Party number 1. This time, they didn't. They fell down to a 49% primary. What that tells us is such a massive drop in the primary of the Labor Party, 30%. This is almost unheard of in modern politics in the West. That really tells us that people are dissatisfied with the Labor campaign and the Cook government. It's also reflected in the two-party preferred swing, which is the one that everyone loves to dig into and what it means for the government come election time. So we finished up with about a 65-35 two-party preferred. Obviously, the party preferred result is favouring Magenta, who's now the new member for Rockingham. But the 35% result that I had as a two-party candidate represents a 22.5% swing, two-party preferred, towards the Liberal Party. Now, and we put a little bit of that down to the campaign, the hard-fought campaign run by the independent, Hayley Edwards. But really, we seeing a large increase in our primary vote in the Liberal Party as well, based on 2017 figures. 22.5%. That is a serious number. And there was actually some calculations and analysis run by the West and the ABC in the past couple of days. If this result here in Rockingham, the safest seat in Australia, if this result was reflected across the rest of Western Australia, the Labor Party's ranks would be halved in Parliament. And that's a huge, huge warning sign for the Cook Labor government. It tells us that the people of Rockingham, even though it's a Labor heartland, they're rejecting the Labor campaign, and it tells us that the people of Western Australia, they're going to give them a really big wake-up call in March of 2025.
Do you think the laws that they push through with the 1,100 square metres, do you think that resonated as well?
Absolutely. Look, in a seat that's metropolitan like Rockingham, we wouldn't have expected the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act to come up as much as it did. But I knew as soon as I ran a community forum here in Rockingham, attended by over 200 people, both the people that are directly affected in the seat of Rockingham, but also people who are in the seat of Rockingham who aren't affected, just concerned, and also people from outside the electorate that travelled to actually come and hear about what the community was saying. As soon as we ran that community forum and actually listened to what the public was saying, we knew that this was a topic that was going to be controversial, even through the by-election. And as I said, Rockingham's a smallish metropolitan area, so there's not it's not like every single property is directly affected by the Heritage Act, but the coverage and the implementation of this act is something that rings true statewide, and that's why there's other community forums that have been run by Andrew Hastie in Dawesville that was attended by over 250 people. There's been farmers' organisations in Katanning attended by over 400 people, but notably the only people missing from these conversations are the Labor ministers who've implemented this act. And it's very interesting that just over 2 weeks ago the Aboriginal Affairs Minister came out and said, the rollout's going very smoothly and there's no dramas. And then 1 week later, they'd done an absolute backflip and say, nothing's on the table, we'll look at changing it if there's any consultation, blah, blah. So the government has been found out on this, and it definitely had an impact here in Rockingham. Even if people aren't affected by their property in the city of Rockingham, the people are waking up to the arrogance of the Cook government, just ignoring the petition that was done by, the public, 30,000 signatures, just ignored. So there's definitely a larger movement against the government because they're not listening to the people.
My question is here, what, for yourself and people concerned about this act, what's the next step, do you think?
Well, the Liberal Party itself has come out with a position that's when we return to government in March of 2025, we will axe the Act. That means we're going to chuck out the laws because we've gone through and read them again and again, and we've just come to the position that the laws are so totally unsuitable that they just need to be thrown out, start again. So that's our position, but obviously that's 18 months away. So that's not going to help people in the next 18 months that are going to be suffering the consequences of this Act. So what we've actually done is move a disallowance motion on the floor of Parliament. So to dig into what that is, so in the upper house, which is your House of Review, the Legislative Council, we've moved a motion that needs to be supported by a majority of the MPs. And if this motion is passed, what the debate will effectively do is cancel the laws. So there's a certain period of time where any act can be disallowed or just effectively removed, and that's after an act has been passed. So this is a case where an act has been passed. It was rammed through the Parliament in 2 days. And so we've moved this when we return to Parliament in August. This month is now August. We will be moving this motion on the floor of the upper house. To dig into even further the conduct of this motion, there are 36 members of the upper house, so which means you need at least 18 in order to move a disallowance motion. Currently, the opposition alliance only sits at 15 members, and that's if you include all of the crossbench. So what you actually would require is 3 members of the Labor Party to break ranks and vote to cancel the laws. So, and to be completely fair, that looks unlikely because the Labor Party have an iron discipline. Even though that they know they've bungled these laws, they will vote down this disallowance motion, which is a disgrace, but not to be unexpected. So the only thing that we as the public can do right now in the next 3-4 weeks, as we lead up to this disallowance motion being debated, is to actually put pressure on your local members of Parliament. Write to your local member, write to Roger Cook, write to Tony Buddy, who's the Aboriginal Affairs Minister, and tell them how broken these laws are. What we need to hear as a Liberal Party is, what is your story? Because we need to take the actual lived experiences of people on the ground, and we can take those into the Parliament and say Jenny from Baldivis is saying that she can't bury her livestock on her own land because she's worried that she might be fined or put in prison for the ramifications of this act. It's stories like those that we can take into the Parliament and actually say, these are why the laws are broken, this is why the Labor Party need to break ranks, and this is why we need to disallow the act on the floor of Parliament.
Here's a question, because again, being a non-political person as such, you mentioned the word Labor Party are very disciplined. I'm assuming that they all have to toe the line. Is it any different in the Liberal Party?
It is actually. So when you sign up to be a Labor candidate or when you're elected as a Labor MP, they're actually bound by their caucus law, which is effectively it's party law, that they have to vote in line with the party on every single issue raised in Parliament. So that extends to both the state Parliament and the federal Parliament. So if, for example, the Labor Party put forward a piece of legislation and a Labor MP disagreed with it, they would still be forced to vote for that legislation, lest they be actually kicked out of the party, which is political suicide for most MPs. So it's been very, very rare that the Labor Party will ever break ranks with what the Labor machine is sort of going with. So it's very much towing the line, and in my view, that's bad for democracy. By contrast, the Liberal Party, yes, we are very disciplined in that, we're very unified, especially in the parliamentary team. We generally agree with one another's positions, but we still have the freedom. We are not bound to any party laws. If, for example, and I'll just use a hypothetical example, if I were to have been elected to the seat of Rockingham, and then, say we return to government in March of 2025, if the leader of the Liberal Party posed a motion or an act on the floor of Parliament that I disagreed with, I would have the freedom to say, no, I'm not going to vote for that. I could cross the floor, is what it's called, cross the floor and vote against that legislation. And I could do that without the fear and the threat of being kicked out of my own party. And that's the beauty of it, is because it still allows for, even though we're a party and we're in it for the same reasons, it still allows us that freedom to really enact democracy at the local level. So if the people of Rockingham, they're not going to have that legislation, if it was something I felt strongly about, then I would cross the floor. Even if it meant, losing a few points within the hierarchy. It's about what's most important. Towing the line is not a huge part of politics for me. It's about what is best for the local community.
Okay, and Libby Metam, how is she been with it at all? Doesn't sound right. What's her opinion of what's happened? Has she spoken to you about it, Peter?
In terms of the by-election broadly? Yeah. Look, Libby and I, we're on the phone every other day. She's been a huge supporter of this campaign. Okay. She's come down a couple of times every week for the last 5-6 weeks. I cannot fault her. In fact, I think as a leader, she has the potential to be Premier one day. And she's my leader. I back her in 100% because I know that she backs me. And that's illustrated by the amount of work and hard work that she's done in Rockingham over the last 5-6 weeks, even though it's Labor heartland. I'm sure she could have been finding plenty of other things to do that could have been like winning her votes elsewhere, but no, she came down to Rockingham to really put in the hard work there. The sentiment I get from Libby is that she's really proud of the result that we had in Rockingham. I think she's really proud that the Liberal Party itself chose to take up the fight in Rockingham. We always knew that it would be a mammoth task to conquer the seat, but the fact that we as the Liberal Party showed the people of Rockingham and broader Western Australia that we're here for the fight. We're willing to stand up against all odds and campaign for the Liberal voice. It's something that I think is very important. And I think that Libby's highly appreciative that we ran such a clinical campaign, and I think that's now reflected in the polling that's been done in the last week or so, saying that she's now the preferred Premier.
It's interesting, isn't it? I want to say to our listeners out there that I was interviewed Peter, as you know, 4 to 5 weeks every week before the election, and I think it's a testament. And I'm not a member of Peter's fan club, but I think it's a testament to you as an individual that you come in after the Labor Party member got in. You come in with just as much passion as you did previous, which I think is great.
Well, it's a good point because I've been constantly asked since Saturday night, what's next for me? Yeah. So as you know, I'm a small business owner, and in the interim, I'll be ramping up my business again. So I've effectively just put it on hold while we've been campaigning. But for those who maybe aren't aware, so I'm a consultant into the resources space. I deal with a lot of contracts and commercial negotiation. My degree's in law for that sort of context. So I'll be ramping that back up in the interim. But frankly, the Labor Party has not gotten rid of me. Even though the result was against us on Saturday night, I'm still not tired like the last local member. Still plenty of energy, and still, as you can hear, I've still got plenty of passion. So I'll be still out and about in the community. Looks like we've got council elections are up in October. I've been approached by numerous sources to actually run for council down here. So that's something I'm considering. I'm not willing to make a public statement on that just yet, but I do have a leaning. And really, the leaning is because wherever I'm best placed to serve the community, that's where I'll be. So, whether that be Rockingham Council or another another area like IPL or any organisation like that, this community's given so much to me. But the Western Australian community's given so much to me. So wherever I'm best placed to give back, that's exactly what I'll be doing.
You seem to have impressed quite a few people with that. I want to say attitude. That sounds wrong. Attitude with your appreciation of Rockingham and what it's done for you. And I don't think, and I might have said this before, Peter, to me it's not, it is for you, but to me it's not a party base. To me, it's who's doing the right thing for my community. That's, I hope people think like that as well, because it's very important.
That's the key, I think, is, and we've spoken about this numerous times, is the key is to have a strong local representative and someone that really knows what the local issues are, someone who's actively involved in the community. I'll leave it to the speculation and the punters about, how this the new local member will go on that. I wish her all the best. Like, I definitely respect the will of the people. I sincerely hope that she develops into being the best local MP that she possibly can be. And I think a large part of that will be getting involved in the local community, because that's something that came up throughout the campaign, was that some people in Rockingham thought that perhaps we needed a local member with stronger local community ties, and I think that's definitely an avenue that I presented as a candidate. Obviously, the people thought differently, but I sincerely hope that she does get involved with organisations like IPL. Being the local member is a tough job, and it's a 24/7 job. So I sincerely hope that she's out and about in the community all day, every day, and it's something I hold a lot of goodwill for. I've done a lot of projects in the community, whether it be with council, chamber of commerce, all the local organisations I'm involved with. I would be more than happy to work with her in implementing some of the great work that we've done over the last couple of years right here in Rockingham.
He's I said it the last time, he's an old head on young shoulders, Peter. So what is going from 24/7 leading up to the election, was it 6 weeks, was it?
That's right.
Is it like a big, not a release valve, but is it a lot less pressure, like you could wake up like this morning or tomorrow morning not having the intensity that you had to have the 6 weeks, or not?
Oh, look, I would say there's definitely less pressure, but I'm maintaining my intensity. And that, so for example, yesterday I was running coffee catch-ups with local residents in Waikiki. So just keeping the finger on the pulse. Been getting out there and collecting all of signage and things like that, getting them ready for the next campaign, and doing a media appearance like this one today, or had a Flashpoint on Sunday, sort of things like that. So definitely keeping active, and I think that's the key. People don't want to see your local candidate because 35% of the electorate voted for me. And that's those 35% of people, they don't want to see me just disappear from public view. No. So I'm keeping involved. I'm still running coffee catch-ups. Obviously, we've got the question of council around the corner, but I'll put that to one side for a moment. It's most important that the local candidates stay active in the community, just like the local member should. And so that's why, even though, yes, the pressure's off, I don't have the cameras following me around all day, every day right now, but I certainly am maintaining that activity within the community, because that's what I love. I wouldn't have put my hand up for it if I didn't love getting out there in the community. So even though the pressure is off, I'm still maintaining like we're rolling on the campaign.
So I think you mentioned March 2025.
That's right.
I think you said 18 months away. Am I correct?
Yeah, about 18 months, and we'll be back on the trail again. It's so obviously in Western Australia elections are fixed, so they can't just be called any time. In Western Australia, we'll always have an election in the same month every 4 years. So that gives us a concrete indication of when we're going to be running. But frankly, the campaign for 2025 started last year. In my view, we kicked off with the Blueprint 2025 program within the Liberal Party, which is effectively a candidate training program with a view to have 59 seats in the lower house, with a view to have 59 of the best, most diverse candidates the Liberals can possibly field for every single seat in the lower house. We started training them months ago, and I'm someone who's been involved with that program, helping to facilitate that program to breed the best candidates that we possibly can. And this campaign was really a test run for us for all of those people to get involved in the campaign. See, is this something that you really want to do? Test your skills, implement all of the strategies we've been talking about working on, and now we're going to start lining up those candidates for the seats that we need to win back in 2025 to take government. So we very much do have that attitude, as we can come back to government in 2025. The people want to see us fight, and the people want to see us win. So that's exactly how we'll be approaching 2025.
Do you find that you said you had 35% of the vote, and in 18 months, do you feel, even though that you didn't get in this time, do you feel that it's an advantage not having to wait, 4 years? Is that the terms we have here?
Yeah, that's right. So state election is 4 years.
So do you find it's an advantage, not so much losing, but you could have momentum from now, which you can follow through in 18 months? Do you feel that's a plus?
I certainly do, yeah. Look, by-election is a blessing in that regard, is that it focuses so much attention onto only a few candidates and only one area. So it's definitely something that I think has raised the stock of not only myself, which isn't that important, it's more so about raising the stock and the profile of Rockingham. So it's going to be very interesting the next 18 months about maintaining this level of activity and maintaining that momentum, because it's like a snowball rolling down the mountain. So. We need to keep building on what we've been doing over the last 6 weeks. And really, for me, is over the last year, 18 months, since the last campaign, we keep building on that momentum. We keep rolling on the campaign. We keep active in the community, and I think we'll definitely we could see an exponential rise in the performance that we have going into 2025, because we're just keeping so active in the community. We just don't let people rest, and we certainly do not let the local member rest without delivering any results.
Wow, Peter's just come up with a new word of the day too, exponential. I really don't know what it means, but no, I do. Here's I like asking random questions, but not to trip anybody up. I don't think that's fair. But do you have holidays, Peter? A, do you have holidays? And B, do you have a holiday planned?
That's a great question. I suppose it depends on your definition of holidays. So before, actually, I was having calls about running for the seat of Rockingham while I was on my last holiday. I put that in quotation marks because I was in the Gold Coast, which is a beautiful place, and I enjoyed the holiday there. But I was actually over there for the judo national. So as you know, I'm right into my martial arts. So I did about a week over there with the family and friends to. Go and win the nationals there, but at the same time, I also treated it like a bit of a holiday. Once the fighting was done, that was time for us to kick back and relax a little bit. I suppose in an industry like politics, you don't really get time to just take a few weeks off and go on holiday and just forget about it all. You really have to find those moments of release and those moments of relaxation within the job. And for me, that looks like even something like this. If I just come along to IPL and have a coffee with Tris or Sarah or whoever, and we just chat and hang out and talk about the issues of the day. For me, that's my downtime because as you know, I don't sleep very much. I'm always working and on the job. So you really do have to find those moments of release where you can. And a lot of that comes down to the people you have around you. I'm someone who's very tight with my family unit, where we're all very close, and I'm very thankful for that. So anytime that I'm around just family, that's like it's almost like holiday time for me. So that's just something that you need to get used to. When you're in politics, you're always expected to be on the job, and I'm certainly not someone complaining about that. But in terms of holidays planned, I don't think I have any on the ticket just yet. I'm getting straight back into it, and we're rolling on. So, but look, as I said at the top of the show, I'm still not tired. I'm still full of energy. I'm definitely not approaching burnout anytime soon. I love doing this, and I feel like I could do it for as long as the people will have me.
It's fascinating. I mean, obviously here in the studio with Peter, but being going around the block a few times as I have in my life, you get a feeling when people are trying to pull one over on you. But you just do. It's a life experience. You just know. And as I said before, my interviews with you, and I think I've got to know you a little bit during our chats, you do seem, and it's sort of like a backhanded compliment, Peter, I'm sorry, but you do seem genuinely compassionate. Like some people can come on, like you see them on TV and you think, you're just doing the company line, you're just spinning. But you actually, to me, you do seem genuinely compassionate, and he's got Peter has a smile on his style. You do seem genuine about what you do.
Absolutely. No, and look, I wouldn't be in politics if I wasn't in it for the right reasons. I think there are some politicians who maybe don't get into it for the right reasons, and there are some politicians who get into it for the right reasons, but they lose their way along the track once they're in there. And I'm someone who going back to those family values and that tight family unit, I'm someone who's grown up with a very strict would be the wrong word, but a very grounded moral value, and that's the reason that I'm running for politics, is those family values. And part of that is once you get in there, you're doing it for the right reasons. And any time that's called into question, then you need to have a serious think about why you're in there, because ultimately you're there to represent your people. And if you're not in it for the right reasons, then people will sniff that out. You will be found out, and it's not always reflected in the polling, and it's not always reflected in the election results on Saturday night. But the people will know if you're a genuine local member or not.
I think that's true. Very much. I was going to ask another question again out of left field. there's been a lot of Liberal premiers. I haven't been in WA all my life, but I'm thinking of Colin Barnett. I'm thinking of Richard Court, Barry McKinnon. They're just three that come to my head. So do you model like stuff when you see footballers? I'll model my game on Patrick Dangerfield or whatever. Do you model your as part of your style or your on any particular politician?
But from the state level, it'd probably be Sir Charles Court, and he's mainly because as a young person, I read a lot of material in his biographies and things like that. So he was a premier that really changed Western Australia at a time where we could have gone any particular direction. He's a premier that I highly respect. Obviously, I've met his son, Sir Richard Court, who was another great premier of this state. But at the state political level, it would probably be Charlie Court. But for those who are probably a bit younger, like myself, the leaders who we probably reflect on the most would be John Howard is always a big one at the federal level. He's someone who, I was a very young person when he was Prime Minister. So he's someone that I sort of grew up with in my household. So he's someone that I respect very highly. But ultimately, I tend to go back to the founder of the Liberal Party, Bob Menzies, who started the Liberal Party in '45, because it was ultimately the values that he, ascribed through his time in Parliament and his runs as Prime Minister that formed the values of the Liberal Party. And it's things like your belief in small business enterprise and the freedom of enterprise and the freedom of people and the association. All of these values that we, ascribe to in the Liberal Party. And it's like we say, okay, Charlie Court, he implemented these values in such a way. John Howard was an outstanding representative of the Bob Menzies forgotten people and things like that. But I think we can always ground ourselves in the founding beliefs of the Liberal Party. And who did that come from? It was Bob Menzies. So I've read a lot into him as well. So he's someone that I think I would ascribe many of my values to. Would be the work and the values of Bob Menzies. It's
interesting, isn't it? I find it as a member of the community is that I don't know who. Maybe I'm going down the wrong path, but maybe you can educate me in that. I find if particularly, how can I use it? You might say somebody like Pauline Hanson, to a degree, Jackie Lambie. I'm only using those as extreme examples that they get shouted down with everything they say. Now, if they say something, I think, well, you've got a good point. The media and other people, they trip them up. I could make, maybe let's just say Pauline Hanson. I can make her look stupid, and she may be a simple woman, but some of the things she says, they get cut down and lambasted, and I think that's difficult in politics because they see you as, unless you agree with us, then you're an idiot.
Look, it's an interesting point, and we say it's the beauty of democracy, don't we, is that everyone can express their opinion. But I think increasingly in the Western world, not just Australia necessarily, if you don't have an opinion that falls within the majority rules or the what seem to be, let's say, politically correct, then I do see that particularly in the modern day, that people are shouted down, and it's not the true functioning of democracy, because we're all supposed to have equal footing under the law. We're all citizens of this country, and we should all have an equal say to say our piece, fight for what we believe in, and stand up for those sort of values. But yes, I take your point. I do see now within, I certainly don't see this within the Liberal Party, but I do see it in other aspects of our democracy, is that people are shouted down, and if you don't agree with particular decisions taken by a particular leader, or if you're against a certain policy, then you can just be shouted down. Your legitimacy can be totally wrecked, and I don't love to use the culture wars word of cancelled, but I do see more of that style of politics, slowly creeping into Australia.
It is, isn't it? And that's, we're just chatting general things. I find it that if you can't, history was history. So if you want to, and I think this happened. So I think they did another version of Cleopatra. And I think they said, well, Cleopatra, she was a and Cleopatra was black. Now, that's not true.
Mm. Yeah, okay. I actually haven't seen it myself.
I just believe that.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like these things happen.
Mm.
The Second World War happened.
That's
these
right.
Things happen.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't tell the kids that.
Yeah, no, that's right, and we're seeing that particularly in the United States and Britain, where things like statues are being pulled down and things like that. My view on it is you can't rewrite history. That's in fact, history, with all of its blemishes, should be taught, especially to younger people, because in my view, whether it's Australian history or World War II or whatever it may be. Yeah. History is a time for people to learn about what came before them. What's the old saying? So those who don't learn history are doomed to repeat it. There's been some terrible times throughout the planet's history, even recently. So if we don't learn that, how can we be expected to learn from it? We always say, history is a way for people like you and I. We can respect, remember, and reflect on history, and we're not saying that bad things haven't happened within our lifetimes. Of course they have, but it's important that we learn from these things, move forward as a community, and we embrace that healing together. And that goes for any sort of issue that's sort of pushing within our history. In my view, is we need to lay it all out on the table. Let's have a conversation about it, respectfully, of course. But we can't just be turning away from history, turning a blind eye, or even as you just suggested there, is actually altering the perception of history. To me, that just sounds ridiculous.
It does, and it seems to become more and more prevalent. Is what I'm trying to say. But look, it's as I say, it's interesting, and we just had a chat about something which I've just pulled out to discuss with you, and that's look. It's almost like two. I don't know Peter that well. It's just like if I have a coffee with Peter now off air, I would chat to him about these things, and it doesn't have to be regimented or this is this and this is this. It's just two people having a chat, and I actually think that it helps it will help you to know people go, you can talk to Peter about history, and he'll have a reasonable conversation. He's not going to go, oh, you're wrong, or this, that, the other. And I think that improves your standing. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, well, that's right. And we were talking, just before off the air about how important it is to be open-minded and have those conversations. I'm someone who studied history in another life. But I mean, even if, there was a conversation that was one of those hard conversations like we have in politics all the time, it's about being open-minded and listening to what people have to say. And I'm someone, I'd like to think, people think that I'm a very approachable person. I can, have a conversation about anything and, be very open-minded and very, at least actively listen to a person. Before giving my my thoughts on what they sort of say, and it takes someone who's switched on, but more importantly, actually wants to listen and has that open-mindedness about them, and willingness to. Well, ultimately, if we're talking about history, it's willingness to learn.
I think so. So it's been fascinating the last 4 or 5, maybe 6 weeks with Peter, and as I say, it's nothing to do with. Peter's standing in the community as a Liberal Party. It's just as a person that I've chatted to about politics, and that's been fascinating. I've learned so much. I really have, Peter, and it's been great having you on, and I assume that you're still accessible by phone and email and all that sort of thing.
That's absolutely right. And it's been absolutely fantastic to be joining you every week, mate. And I've learned a lot about yourself. And it's always been always great to stay involved with IPL and all the other organisations I'm in. Yes, the short answer is that I'm not going anywhere. They're not getting rid of me. So I'm still active. You can reach me on all of my socials at Peter4Rockingham. I've got my mobile number. I've still got it in my left-hand pocket. If anyone wants to give me a call, my email's there. I answer all my own emails. Anyone can get in touch with me anytime. Whether it's politically related, community related, whatever it may be, I'd love to continue the chat with the people of Rockingham.
And that's what I think is important, guys. So thanks again, Peter, and all the best for your future and your business, and also for your continued progression in the Liberal Party.
Thanks very much, Nick. Appreciate it.